Hey, what's up? Heading over to the east side real quick. I was just watching my friend Dolly and John. They're doing a live stream. And Dolly was cooking and she said, get on the bike. And that's what I should be doing today. It's beautiful out. She said, get on the bike and bring Amy and come eat dinner. And I told her I haven't had Amy on the bike since I laid the bike down. We'll be going right up here, right by where I laid that bike down. I got a picture of that bike I'll put up in my comment section when I upload this. It's an old Virago 750, and the exit where it happened at, it used to be called Cypress Exit, but they expanded Lambert International Airport, and when they did, they changed things around, and that's what almost got us killed. Well, I take that back. What almost got us killed was my complacency. The one thing you never, ever want to do on a motorcycle is get complacent. Complacent will get you killed. My father and mother grew up in this neighborhood here. My grandparents, lived in this neighborhood. And since the day I was born, I've been coming to this neighborhood to see my grandparents and everything else. We moved with my mother over to the east side of St. Louis, which is on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River. But until 8th grade, the end of my 8th grade school year, we lived on the Missouri side over here of St. Louis. It's kind of like Kansas City, part of Kansas City's in Kansas, another part of Kansas City's in Missouri. So the river splits the city in half, kind of thing. St. Louis, you got north, south, and west St. Louis are all on the Missouri side. The east St. Louis is on the Illinois side. But me and Amy had decided we were going to run over to my uncle's house on the bike. And I've been off that exit literally, not exaggerating, 1,000 times in my life. It used to have a real long ramp that went down when you got off the highway, and you come to a stoplight, and you could go left or you could go right. Right would take you to Lambert Airport, and left would take you to the Rock Road, which I'm on right now, St. Charles Rock Road. But I come flying off that ramp. I was doing 75, 80. And you come over the top of this little hill there, when you get on the ramp, you go over this little hill and down. And I was already on the ramp, was committed, there's no getting off it now. If I did, I would have to go out into the grass, and grass does not mix well with street bikes, especially at 75, 80 miles per hour. But, I was expecting things to be like they always were when I got off that exit ramp, and they weren't. I had less than half the distance than I normally would have, because they started the expansion process on the airport, and there were concrete barricades doing a 180-degree hairpin back towards the airport. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh my God. I mean, I hit the brakes, and on a motorcycle, you don't want to hit just back brakes, because your ass end's going to start swinging all over the place. So I hit the brakes front and back, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop in time. So I really started hitting the brakes as hard as I could, and the bike started to wobble a little bit, and I was afraid that if I didn't let off the brake, I was going to go into a tank slapper, into a death wobble. So at that point, I decided the best thing I could do, I had resigned myself to the fact that we were going to hit those concrete barricades. So I figured I'd lay the bike down sideways with the tires facing towards the concrete barricades, maybe absorb a little bit of the impact. And that's what I did, is I laid the bike down sideways, and it was a horrible feeling. I will never forget it as long as I live. When I laid that bike down, the thought that went through my head was, oh my God, I killed her. And it was by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God that we survived that, because what happened was, Amy did perfect. A lot of times you get in a hairy position on a bike, you got somebody on the back, they'll start throwing their legs all over the place, and that could throw your balance off. And she squeezed tighter. I don't blame her for that, but she stayed centered with the bike and with me. And what happened was, my left foot somehow got caught, and it rolled underneath the tire, and it twisted my foot. But that going underneath that back tire, my foot rolling underneath it, it lifted the bike up, and it shot us in the direction we needed to go. And the reason I say by the grace of God is because all this happened in a matter of split seconds. I mean, it was right there is where it happened. There's no way I would have ever thought of, hey, I'll put my foot underneath the back tire, and my foot rolling underneath it's going to make the bike straighten up and shoot us the way we need to go. I'd have never thought of that. And even if I would have thought of it, there's no way I would have pulled it off. But that's exactly what happened. It was a miracle, in my opinion. If you don't believe in God, you could call it dumb luck. But that saved our lives that night. Because even after the brief amount of time I had to try to brake, we would have hit that wall probably 55, 60 miles per hour. And I don't know if we would have died, but it'd have been real bad. And we got absolutely no road rash, nothing from it. Because, I had a leather jacket on, but I didn't have no chaps on, nothing. And we weren't down that long. My left foot, that's what happened. It rolled right under that back tire, and it twisted the bike and kicked us up in the air, and we landed the way we were supposed to go. It's almost like an angel of God just... And the only injury we had, I went to a couple stoplights trying to get back on the highway, and by that time, every time I'd put my left foot down, I couldn't hardly hold the bike up. My foot was hurting so bad. And I said, let's go to the hotel for the night. We went to a hotel, and I made the mistake of taking my boot off. And when I did, my foot just swelled up huge. And next morning, my foot was so swollen I couldn't even get my boot on. So I called one of my brothers, called Bobby, and he had somebody drive him over in a car so he could ride my bike back. But my wife has not been on the back of the bike with me since then. When I got my custom, she noticed all the people honking at me, and you know, like when she was following me, people honking, saying nice bike and this and that. And she goes, well, we could get a seat for the back of it, can't we? And I said, if you want to, yeah, we can get a seat. There is no woman other than my wife or my daughter or one of my grandbabies that would be on my bike. I would never disrespect my wife and put another woman on that bike. As a matter of fact, I noticed once I got that bike, because it is a very beautiful bike, that I'd be like, I come up with the perfect fly swatter. I was at the gas station one day getting gas in it, and this younger gal, I'm 58, she was probably in her 30s, early 30s. She come up to me, and you could tell when somebody's firing on you. And I'm not saying she was flirting with me because of me, that I'm such a handsome guy. I noticed women coming up at gas stations talking to me since I got that bike. And so she come up to me and she said, that's a really nice bike. And I said, yeah. And she was kind of standing there, and I could tell she was waiting for me to say something. I don't know, I guess she was judging the air. But I told her, I said, yeah. I said, I wish it was mine, though. And she goes, that's not your bike? I said, no, it's my wife's. She's going riding with her girlfriends later on. And I told her that I'd come up and put gas in her bike for her. And she turned around, walked away, and left this old man alone. But that's, if I got a woman comes up to me now and says, nice bike, that's what I tell them. It's a white lie. I tell them it's my wife's bike. But you should have seen the look on her face when I said it wasn't my bike. I said, it's my wife's bike. She's going riding with her girlfriends, and I told her I'd put some gas in the tank for her. It's perfect, though, and it works. I cannot be pulled off of my wife. It's not possible. It's not possible. The devil tried that down in Nogales, Mexico. But I need to get off of here. I'll do a video on my way back too. I was wanting to, since they took my other channel down, I got to talking about politics. And I wish I never would have done that, because what I was trying to bring attention to was all the children that are missing, that have come across that border and stuff like that. And, you know, we're supposed to have freedom of speech in America, and we do. We're free to say whatever we want, but only if it is what they want us to say. If it goes against the narrative, you can find yourself getting censored real quick. And I wish I wouldn't have done that, because I did have a purpose in doing my videos. It was giving me peace that when I died, maybe my life would be worth something good. Maybe some young person would see my video and change the path they were on, and not let pain from their childhood destroy them like I did. I thought I could turn a negative into a positive that way. And when they took my channel down, it really took a lot of wind out of my sails, because I honestly don't feel I have the time left to do what I had done before. And there were a lot of videos on there also for family and friends and my children, and there would have been a lot of unanswered questions when I closed my eyes. And there were some really good videos that would have helped people. Plus, like, there was a video from my mom's friend Dory. She was my mom's, worked with my mom, and I had a video of her talking about the time the police had me and her in the front yard at gunpoint, spread eagle on the ground. The alarm went off, and I was on ankle bracelet. She said, "Mark, the cops are here." I said, "What are the cops doing here?" She goes, "I don't know, just stay in here." I come walking out in my prime, all tatted up. As soon as I walked out that front door, they had guns pointed at me. "Get on the ground, get on the ground." And they had me and Dory on the ground for like 20 minutes, pointing guns at us till my mother got there. And I can't get that back. Dory's dead, you know. But I'm going to try to do videos I can while I'm still here. But what I need to try to stay focused on is telling my story and giving God the credit for the change in me. Because believe me, all the glory goes to God Almighty. I'll tell you one more quick little story that goes along with that. My buddy Kirby used to go all over the country doing tattoos, mostly on motorcycle club members, but he was coming in from Florida, and he had a layover in St. Louis, and whenever he's in town here, he'd stay with me and Amy. I met Kirby. My mother tried so many different things to get me help. Nobody fought harder to save me from myself than my mother. And she had put me everywhere. I mean, drug rehabs, mental institutions, you name it. The third time she put me in Walden Springs mental institution, I got kicked out because I took a big napkin holder, the kind where you can pull napkins out either side, and it's like chrome on both sides and black in the middle. And I took one of them upside this dude's head, and they pulled me off of him. He was not moving, and there was blood all over the floor, and they had to send him out to the hospital. And in Arizona, my mom told me how all that went down. She said that they had called her, and you got to keep in mind, they had me on doses of Thorazine, which is a major tranquilizer. I would get 3 pills a day. They give you a little measuring cup of juice to wash it down with. But I was flipping out and having to be restrained so much that they were giving me Thorazine pill 3 times a day, and I was still flipping out. And whenever I'd flip out, they'd strap me down to this metal bed, and they'd shoot me in the ass with Thorazine. And Thorazine's very thick. It goes in real thick. Feels like you got a knot in your ass, but she said that they called her and they said, you need to come get your son. And she said, excuse me? And they said, he attacked another resident, and we had to send him out to the hospital, and we don't know what's going to happen with the other resident. We cannot control him here. And my mother said, you are a lockdown mental institution. You have him on major tranquilizers, and you're saying you can't control him. What the hell am I supposed to do with him? In my mother's defense, she had tried everything. Some things more than once. I was completely 100% out of control. I had taken over the household. I was beating my stepfather up. She tried everything. So before anybody tries to pass blame on my mother, just know that my mother fought harder than anybody to try to get her son help. I was out of control. My stepdad was a 240-pound man. I was a 155-pound teenager, and I was beating his ass and tossing him around like a rag doll. So they sent me to a couple foster homes, and I kept attacking people at those places. So finally, they sent me up to Chaddock in Quincy, Illinois. My mother had signed her rights away to the state of Illinois. I became what back then was called a ward of the state. Until I was 18 years old, I was a ward of the state. But I met Kirby at Chaddock. And I used to call Chaddock the island of unwanted toys, because that was the last stop for troubled kids, you know, before you end up going to juvenile detention or something like that. But Kirby would stop by our house whenever he would come through St. Louis. We stayed friends until he died. But he was going to catch a bus, and I took him down. The bus station's right behind me here. I took him down to the bus station in St. Louis, and that is shark-infested territory. Very dangerous part of St. Louis. Well, I seen there was this kid laying there, and he was shaking, and it was like 98 degrees out, 80-something% humidity, just stifling hot. And he's wearing a Hollister shirt, got real nice khaki shorts on, and he's laying there curled up shaking. Well, I've been homeless many times, so I know the homeless lifestyle, and I'm thinking, man, something ain't right. This is a dog that lost his collar. This ain't typical homeless. You don't see typical homeless people wearing Hollister shirts. And something in my heart, God speaks to my heart. Something in my heart said, I asked him if he's all right. And I went up and I said, hey man, what's going on? And he covered himself up like he was terrified, but looking at me and Kirby would be scary for somebody, especially in that neighborhood. So I took Kirby in, said goodbye to him, and when I come out, that same voice, in my heart, said, I told you to make sure he's all right. And I was thinking, the way he's shaking, he's either got heat stroke going on, or he's going through withdrawals. So I was walking up to him, and I noticed he had on socks, and they were Nike socks, but he had no shoes on. And I said, hey, what happened to your shoes, man? And he goes, they took them. I said, who took him? He said there was some guys that took his backpack, his shoes, his wallet. Basically, he got robbed at the bus station, Greyhound bus station in St. Louis. So I said, well, where are you going? Where are you headed? He said, down to Florida to my mom's house. He was out in California. His mother had sent him to a drug rehab. And I said, well, if you want, you can go back to my house with me, because at that time, you know, a couple times a year I would take a homeless person home and give them a night off the streets, because I know what it's like to be homeless. But I got him back to my house, and the first thing I did when I got him there is I looked up the phone number for the police here where we live. And I wrote the number down, and I said, call your mom and let me talk to your mother. I'm a parent. I got 4 kids. So he calls her, and I explained to her that I had found him down at the bus station and what had happened. And the bus station would not let him in there. He was stinking by this time. He was down there for 3 days in that heat. And that's what was going on. This boy was having a heat stroke. They would not let him in. They would not give him another ticket. He didn't have no ID that got stolen with his wallet. And he was in bad shape. But I explained to her, I gave her my name, and I gave her my address. I said, look, I'm a parent. This is the police station phone number here. At any time you want, you can have them come by my house to do a wellness check on your son to make sure he's okay. I mean, you hear my voice saying, I got your son here in St. Louis. I can imagine what I'd be thinking as a parent. And as a parent, there's a certain code you go by. And my first code was to let his mother know where he was, because he should have been home a couple days ago, you know. But so she says, she calls up, talks to Greyhound, and she gets another ticket for him that he can pick up there. And I assured her, tomorrow I will have him on that bus. So I told him, I said, hey, I gave him some of my shorts. I didn't give him none of my underwear. I'm weird about that kind of stuff, but I gave him a pair of my shorts and a t-shirt. I said, put these on and I'll wash your clothes, because 3 days in that hot sun, he was smelling pretty ripe. So he went in the bathroom. You know, I got him towels and a washcloth. Well, my wife's in cooking dinner. This boy comes walking out of that bathroom with the shirt on, but butthole naked from the waist down. And my wife couldn't see nothing from where he was. I said, get your ass in there and get them shorts on. He went back in. A little bit later, he come back out again, asshole naked from the waist down. And I got pissed. I said, boy, I'm taking you up in my house, and you're going to disrespect me, come out of that bathroom naked? I said, next time you come out of there without your pants on, I'm going to beat your fucking ass. And I felt like shit, because he had tears just rolling down his cheeks. He was so weak from being in the heat and dehydrated, he couldn't get his shorts on. So I had him lean up against the wall, and I told him, I said, don't you even think about coming forward. And I held the shorts, and I got him up to his knees where he could get a hold of them, and I apologized to him. I felt like a piece of shit, you know, yelling at him like that. But I'm thinking, this boy's tripping. Come out butthole naked like that. But he went to sleep. The next day, me and my wife got him a care package together, some juices, some fruit, crackers, different things to take on the bus with him. Well, his mother called me the very next day, and this kid was so weak and so confused. He got, at one of the hubs, she had to buy him another ticket. I had promised this woman her son was going to come home safe to her. So I got on. His last stop was Jacksonville, Florida, and his mother lived before he went to Orlando. So I got on the internet and I saw that there were 5 churches around that bus station there in Jacksonville, within blocks. I called every one of those churches, seeing if there was somebody that could go there and help him get on the right transfer there. Nobody would do nothing. Nobody. One of the churches even said, we ain't got time to be going down helping no grown man get on the bus. So out of desperation, I called the Jacksonville Police Department. And I talked to an Officer Schneider. And Officer Schneider, I told him everything that was going on. And he said that he would go down there and make sure he got on the right bus. Well, the next day, his mother, Officer Schneider called back and he said, there's a 5-hour delay on that bus. I said, you have got to be kidding me. He said, no. He goes, but don't worry about it. I'll be there and I'll make sure that boy gets on that bus. So the next day, I'm up at the St. Anne's picnic with the wife and kid. And the phone rings and I saw it was his mother, and she said, he's home. Thank you so much. And I was like, oh, thank God. And she said, what did you say to him? And I said, excuse me? And I thought at first she was talking about me snapping on him when he came out of that bathroom butthole naked. And I said, excuse me? And she goes, when I sent him to California for drug rehab, he was fighting it all the way. His counselors there said that they think he was just saying what they wanted to hear, you know. He said, but he's on fire. He's saying he wants to go to NA meetings and that you'll be his sponsor. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, I cannot be his sponsor. He needs a sponsor that lives closer to be a sponsor. I said, he can call me anytime he wants, and I'll be happy to talk to him. Day and night, don't matter. But I cannot be his sponsor. And she said, what did you say to him that caused such a change? And the only thing I could think of, when I was driving him the next day to the airport, or to the bus station, he asked me if I had ever been to prison. And I didn't mention nothing about prison to him. Maybe it's the tattoos, I don't know. I can always tell if somebody's been to prison because of the ink on the tattoos. It's green. Prison ink's green. It's not dark like it should be. But I told her, I said, well, he asked me if I'd ever been to prison, and I told him yes, I was. And he asked what would happen to him, what I thought would happen to him if he went to prison. And I was just honest with him. He was very weak looking. In prison, he would have had people preying on him. He would have been a victim, not us. You got 2 types of people in prison. You got predator and prey, sharks and minnows, you know. And he would have been he would have been prey. And I didn't pull no punches with him, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back with me, and violence and stuff was something that happened to a young guy while I was in prison, and I'll do a video about that. I just have to be very careful what I say. Man, this traffic's all backed up. I'm gonna cut through East St. Louis, I think. But so she thanks me, and I told her it's no problem. You know, I'm a parent. And I knew he was a dog that lost his collar. You don't see homeless people in St. Louis wearing clothes like that. And then seeing them in those Nike socks with no shoes, I just knew something wasn't right. And like I said, God, when you start listening to God's voice, it isn't like a voice out of the sky. I'm not crazy. I was a scarred up kid, that had a lot of emotional problems from my childhood, but I'm not crazy. And it's not a voice I hear. God speaks to your heart. And when you start listening to that voice, you know when it's God and when it's the enemy. Like about 8 months ago, I had this little voice saying, and when I say voice, I mean just these thoughts, saying, you might as well start taking pain meds again. It would numb your mind up and help deal with the anxiety you're feeling about everything going on, and your body hurts every single day. You are in pain. What difference does it make? You ain't got long to live anyways. You might as well. And I said out loud, I know this voice. And every time I've listened to this voice, it don't ever go right. I'll listen to you, and then I'll be strung out again on opiates and having to live as a junkie, and I'll be living another 10 years. No, I don't listen to that voice. But after a while, you get used to, you can distinguish between God's voice and the enemy's voice. But, so I'm like, thank God he's home safe. And my one buddy Kirby had called me, and I was still obsessed. I think he called whenever I was trying to call them churches and get somebody to go up there. And he said, dude, you did enough. You got him on the bus. I said, I promised his mother that she would have her son back safe. And until that happens, I'm not done with it. But, so we're up at the fair. I get off the phone with his mother. And then this number comes in on my phone, a call. And it's a number that any convict does not want to answer. I've never seen nothing like it, the way the numbers were on my phone. And it was definitely, my whole brain said this is a government, something with the government. So I said, the hell with it. I answered the phone. And I heard somebody say, Mr. Mark. And I said, yeah, who's this? And he said, it's Officer Snyder. I said, yes, sir. What can I do for you? He said, I just wanted to let you know I talked to his mother and he's home safe. I said, yeah, I just got off the phone with her. I said, thank you so much for doing what you did. And he said, it's not a problem. He goes, I got to ask you something. And I said, yes, sir. He says, when you told me what was going on and everything, and you gave me your name and your address and your birthday, he said, I ran your name. He said, what happened to you? I said, what do you mean? He said, what takes a man from what I'm seeing on paper to somebody that'll do what you did for that kid? And at the time, I hadn't really meditated on my life and everything, so I didn't have an answer for him. I wrote him a letter during COVID, and I told him, I said, God softened my heart in prison, and in his infinite wisdom, he set the most unselfish, loving human being I've ever met in my life to be my life partner and to teach me how to love again. And that's exactly what happened. But what he was seeing on paper, and I didn't know this till Arizona, is I am on a federal gang database for the whole country. It's in every state. When you're in a prison gang and they know that you are a flag holder, somebody of some significance in that gang, they put you on this federal database. So I am red flagged in every police cruiser in the United States of America. It pops up a little red flag. And the reason I know that, me and my wife got pulled over on the way home one night in Arizona. And Amy says, "What the hell is going on with this cop?" And I look in the side mirror, and he's got his pistol out behind the back of the car, the trunk. I said, "I don't know." And then another cop car pulls up, and they did the whole thing. Driver, hands out of the window, and passenger, I mean, they had me back up, lace my fingers together, kneel down, lay down, spread eagle, palms up, the whole thing. They did the same to my wife. They handcuffed us and put us each in different back seats. And then after a little bit, they let us out. They let us get back in the car. He goes, "Okay, have a nice day." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "What the hell was that?" And he goes, I said, "What did I do?" He said, "Well, you were doing 5 over the speed limit." And I said, "So you're going to pull a gun out on my wife?" And he goes, "Well, you red flagged me." I said, "What are you talking about?" Because to me, a red flag is something I tie on my ladder of the work truck when it's hanging out the back too far. I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't even got my work truck. I'm in the wife's car." And he said, "No, on my computer." And I said, "Sir, what are you talking about?" He goes, "On my computer, a little red flag pops up, and it said, 'Known prison gang member, extremely violent and dangerous, approach with caution.'" And I said, "Sir, I've never been to prison in Arizona." And he said, "This is nationwide. You are on a federal gang database." I said, "Oh shit, I never knew that." And whenever I come back, one of my buddies, Johnny, he's done 22 years and he's getting ready to go back again. I can't keep him out of trouble, but he goes, "Yeah, you didn't know that?" And I said, "No, nobody said nothing to me." He said, "You're a flag holder, man." He said, "Once you earn your flag, and they know it, you're on that database." And see, I'm lucky. The organization I was in prison, it only exists in the Illinois Department of Corrections. So whenever I got out, I got to be a father, a husband, a grandfather. I don't have to bang on the streets. It's only in prison. If I went back, I would have to soldier again. And I don't think I could do that. My heart, I'm capable of violence, but only if it's to protect my life or somebody I love's life. I'm not capable of violence on the level that I was when I was in prison. I don't want to hurt anybody. Shit, just broke down the whole body. I'd probably get myself hurt, but the point is, I'm not the person that they see on paper anymore. But they don't know that. So when I get pulled over, I keep my hands on the steering wheel. They ask for my insurance, registration, driver's license. I give them what they want. I say, "Yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." And there is never a problem. And they have a lot of reasons by what they're reading to be very nervous with me. And when I was younger, I've had the police beat me up a bunch of times. But it's because I was swinging at them. I was cussing at them, telling them I had sex with their mother. I mean, I'd have beat my own ass. You get what you give most of the time with the police. If you're respectful and you comply, you ain't gonna have a problem. People want to run their mouths and be little assholes, and then when the cops are assholes back, they want to cry and complain. But I am just as much at risk of getting shot by the police as any black man in this country, because I am on that federal database and I am red flagged. It gives them a warning. It alerts them, hey, this is a known prison gang member, be careful with them. But I've never had a problem since I started saying yes sir, no sir, and complying. But that's what Officer Snyder was seeing on paper. He was seeing that red flag from that database, and he was asking me, what takes a man from what I'm seeing on paper to what you did for that young man? And I'll say it till the day I die. God softened my heart in prison, and in his infinite wisdom, he sent the most loving, unselfish woman I've ever met in my life to teach me to love again. And that's exactly what happened. That's my story, and I'll stick to it till the day I die. Because I've had time to meditate on my life. And that's what happened. And I sent him a letter during COVID telling him what happened. And I also, on Facebook, the Tallahassee Police Department, I wrote them a letter telling them the whole ordeal of that boy at the bus stop, and telling them that 5 churches, 5 houses of God that are supposed to be Christian churches, refused to do a damn thing. It was a Tallahassee police officer named Snyder is his last name, and I found out a little bit more about him because they gave him the X Award. It's for going the extra mile as a police officer for that. What I wrote, that he ended up getting some award through the Tallahassee Police Department for going above and beyond what he was obligated to do. And it said that he was on the tactical unit for the Tallahassee Police Department, which means he is a fucking badass, is what it means. They call in the tactical unit, you've got big problems. Same in prison. In Illinois prison, the tactical unit was called Orange Crush. And they come in with them shields and nightsticks, and they didn't get dressed up to coddle you and be gentle with you. They come in to split heads and get reestablish order. But that's what's sad about everything too, is with the help of God, I have totally changed who I am as a human being. I genuinely care about other people. I have love in my heart for other human beings. And my friends have noticed it. People that knew me have noticed it. This police officer noticed it. But my own family, I'm not that person anymore. I don't even recognize the person I used to be. He was a very violent, merciless, no mercy. I was brutal. And that's how I know there's a God. Because when I accepted God into my life and into my heart and started trying to develop a relationship with Him, it's night and day. good friend's sisters told me and Amy got invited to her brother's wedding. He, real good friend of mine. And she come up to me, and Cindy's very blunt. And that's why it's the biggest compliment I got since I've been home. She said, Mark, I used to hate your fucking guts. I used to tell Brian and Dwayne, why do you hang out with him? She said, but you have turned into a good man and a good husband. And I said, Cindy, why did you hate me? Your brothers are two of my best friends. And she said, you chased a guy through my house with a gun shooting at him. And I'm thinking, no way. Out of respect for my friends, even back then, I would have put the brakes on. But it come back to me. That's how out there I was. I remember going and getting the gun. I remember making eye contact with the guy. I put the car in park and the race was on. And that's the house he ran into. And I did chase him through that house trying to shoot him. I shot at him going over the back wooden fence. I couldn't tell you his name or what he did to make me angry. But it come back to me, and I called her up. I said, Cindy, you're right, I did do that. I said, but in my defense, I did not know where you lived. If I knew you lived there, I would have put the brakes on. And she says, it don't matter, Mark. I just wanted you to know how proud I am of you. The change that you have made in your life, how good you treat your wife. And, you know, she said, I just wanted to acknowledge that. And it's sad when you can't get that same acknowledgement from the people that are, but they're the ones that scarred me up in the first place. So, but it's like I say, you know, I can't blame all the things I did on them. I was out of that house at 13 years old, and by the age of 13, you know good and bad, right and wrong. And once I was out of that house, I can't blame them for nothing. I'm the one that chose to deal with that emotional pain the way I dealt with it, with drugs and alcohol and violence. And I have to own that. Honor is not never making a mistake. We all make mistakes. We're human beings. Honor is when you make a mistake, you own it, you carry the weight, and you don't push it off on somebody else. Sometimes as kids, we go through things that are very hurtful. It's how we deal with that matters. You can deal with it negatively and destroy yourself and waste your life like I did and continue to be a victim, or you can deal with it positively and succeed despite what you went through. And that's how you become a survivor. But yeah, that boy on the bus, that's what he said. He says, what happened to you? What takes a man from what I'm reading here on paper to somebody that will do what you did for that kid? And also, I've been homeless. I've walked all night long because I knew if I laid down, I was going to freeze to death. I've gone a week without anything in my belly to eat. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like not to know where you're going to sleep. I've been there. And that's why I got so much compassion for the homeless. And like I said, God touches my heart. Like he did with that kid, you know. And every homeless person I've brought home for the night, just to give them a break for a night, I've never had a problem with them. But since my breathing ain't good no more, I don't do it because If something physical would happen, I would have to kill them, and I don't want to hurt anybody. I can't fight no more. Anybody that's done even a tiny bit of fighting knows cardio is very important. If you can't breathe, it's over before it starts. Unless you're a knockout artist. And I can't breathe good anymore, so I don't invite men I don't know into my home for the night. But even when I could breathe good, I'd tell them, look, this is no disrespect to you. I'd show them where the food was, the stove, bathroom, towels, all that. You can eat whatever you want, take a shower, use the washer dryer. But if I catch you past that bathroom or going down them basement steps, we're going to have a problem. Because I invited you in. A man's most important job is the safety of his family. And I don't know you. And since I invited you in, I have to stay awake and make sure my family's safe. It's no disrespect to you. It's the world we live in. But I haven't done that since my breathing got real bad, because then I got to stab them or shoot them, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to invite somebody into my house to have to kill them. Before, I could defend myself with my fist and grapple and choke them out and do whatever I had to do. But I can't do that no more, so I would have to get lethal, and I don't want to have to do that. And like I said, a man's first priority is the safety of his family and providing for them. That's why the good Lord made man, by and large, physically stronger than females. Because a man is the warrior, the protector, the provider. Then the woman, God made them much more attuned to emotions, and because the woman is the loving, nurturing, compassionate part of the yin and yang. That's why I feel whenever a man and a woman split up, if the woman's in her right mind, she's not strung out on drugs, the child should always go with the mother. Because what the mother offers, that loving, nurturing, compassionate part of the equation, is more important, I feel, to a young child than what a man teaches. But a child does best, statistically proven, when he has a loving mother and father as a part of his life. But if the child has to live one place or another, because unfortunately nowadays people treat marriage as changing clothes, you know. I don't know, everybody sees these Disney movies and they think everything's supposed to be perfect or it's not love. You know, all marriages have problems, but the ones that get married and they truly put the other person in front of themselves and they're in it for the long haul, those are the ones that make it. Honesty's everything. Honesty and trust and good communication. But I'm gonna hop off here, but yeah, I'll do that video on what softened my heart in prison. Even though it's hard for me to talk about, I could still see his eyes every time he come out of one of them cells. But it was just when I got tired of seeing how shitty we can be as human beings to each other, the cruel things that we can do to each other. It just, I don't know. I spoke the language of violence fluently. And it was like the last straw. I just was tired of hurting people. I was tired of seeing people hurt. I couldn't take it no more. But I'm gonna hop off here. Much love to all of you. Have a good day.